Along with having premium hardware and specs, Samsung's Galaxy Ultra line is all about offering the most versatile and powerful cameras around, kicking off what we now know as space zoom, where you can reach upwards of 50 or even 100x, all while shooting completely handheld. Samsung kicked off this series with the Galaxy S20 Ultra last year, then followed up with the Note 20 Ultra and more recently, the Galaxy S21 Ultra, all of which feature 108 megapixel primary sensors along with ultra-wide and telephoto secondary lenses. So what happens when we compare the extreme zoom lengths of each Ultra camera? I'm Hayato with Android Central. Let's take a look at some photo samples. Versatility is the name of the game with Samsung's Ultra line, so I wanted to focus largely on the zoom range with each phone and how the image quality degrades differently as you reach 10, 50, or 100x. To start with, here's a standard wide-angle shot from each phone's 108 megapixel primary camera. The sensors are identical between the S20 Ultra and Note 20 Ultra, with the only differences being image processing and the Note's laser autofocus system, which was added in to correct for some of the S20 Ultra's focusing problems. The S21 Ultra features a version 2 sensor, which Samsung says takes in more light and color detail. Now, the S20 Ultra's capture is considerably darker than the other two, and colors seem to be a bit more muted. There's not much detail here in the bricks of the building either, but to my surprise, it was the Note 20 Ultra rather than the newer S21 Ultra that captured the brightest shot with the most visible detail in the brick. And interestingly, you can see that the S21 Ultra's camera is slightly wider than the others. Conversely though, the S21 Ultra actually has a slightly tighter lens when we switch to the ultra-wide cameras, 0.6x versus 0.5x on the Note 20 Ultra and S20 Ultra. The difference in perspective is basically imperceptible to me, but I was surprised by just how different the color temperature turned out on each of these shots. The S21 Ultra cast an oddly green tone over its photo, while the Note 20 Ultra leans further magenta, and even more so on the S20 Ultra. Yet again, it looks like the Note 20 Ultra retained the most fine detail in the brick, and I think all three cameras did a great job at minimizing the kind of barrel distortion that you usually see in an ultra-wide shot. Though I suppose that shouldn't be surprising, Samsung's been doing a good job at this for quite some time now. Moving on to the next scene, I'm starting to notice a bit of a trend here. For the third time in a row, the photo from the S20 Ultra looks dark, dreary, and sort of lifeless. In its defense, it was dreary and lifeless outside when I took these samples, but the Note 20 Ultra and S21 Ultra, can I just drop the Ultra tag? The Note 20 and S20 revitalized the shot with quite a bit more warmth than the S20, and the Note is 3 for 3 in terms of taking the brightest, most detailed shots. Pay special mind to the signage on the restaurant to see just how much sharper the Note's photo looks. Switching gears back to ultra-wide, this is the first time I've actually liked the S20's capture the most. The S21's photo is wildly yellow compared to the others, and while the Note 20 still took the brightest photo of the three, I think it actually went a bit too far towards magenta this time, and the highlights in the sky seem to be just a bit more tame in the S20's shot. For this ultra-wide set in harsher lighting, the S20 actually managed to take the brightest shot, but it went so far that the white building in the background is completely blown out. The same goes for the Note 20's shot. The S21 is the only phone that managed to keep highlights under control, and as a bonus, it leans the warmest of the three. Of course, your taste in color temperature might differ from mine, but I generally side with warmer shots, so for me, the S21 Ultra definitely takes this round. But just about every phone these days can take a good wide-angle shot, so let's focus on what the Ultra devices really specialize in: telephotography. The S21 Ultra and S20 Ultra can both reach up to 100x space zoom, while the Note 20 Ultra maxes out at 50x. They all achieve this zoom range in different ways. The S20 leverages a 4x optical periscope-style lens, along with what Samsung calls hybrid optic zoom, while the S21 packs dual telephoto lenses, one at a native 3x and the other at 10x, to maintain sharper imaging at various focal lengths up to 100x. Meanwhile, the Note 20 Ultra has a native 4x telephoto sensor and uses the same hybrid optic zoom technology as the others. For the sake of this comparison, I opened the camera apps on each phone and tapped the telephoto icon above the shutter button rather than matching exact zoom ranges, because frankly, that shortcut button is there for a reason, and that's how most people will use their cameras. On the S21, that button switches you over to the first telephoto lens with a native 3x perspective, while the Note 20 and S20 both default to 5x instead. I think all three cameras managed to stay impressively sharp at these lengths, though the different framing on the S21's shot as a result of the wider field of view likely impacted the colors, since there's no visible brick to worry about in the other two shots. The other big difference I noticed in the 5x samples is just how much more contrast is present in the Note 20's photo, with far more separation between the black text and the white painted brick. Zooming in to 10x on all three phones, that still rings true. The S21 and S20 both look a bit washed out compared to the punchy, high contrast look of the Note's shot, though the native 10x lens on the S21 Ultra helps it retain the most detail of the three. Still, these are all perfectly usable shots at 10x. On that note, we've mentioned in each of our Ultra reviews that while 50 or 100x sounds impressive on paper, the end results are often too soft and grainy to really be usable for anything other than the wow factor. And while I still wouldn't rush to post any of these to social media, I wasn't expecting these shots at each phone's max zoom range to hold up as well as they did. The S20's 100x shot is clearly the weakest of the three, but I was struck by how much sharper the S21's photo at the same length turned out, and 50x on the Note 20 looks surprisingly decent too, again aided by the warmer tones and higher contrast. This next set is basically a repeat of the last one. The S20 and Note 20 completely blow out the side of this church, while the S21 managed to keep the image intact. Punching into the default zoom ranges, I'm again struck by how much the S20 falls behind, especially compared to the Note 20 with the same 5x perspective. The Note's photo isn't just sharper, there's dramatically more detail in the brick along with the artwork in the window, and the warmer tones make more sense for this bright sunny day. The S20 falls even further behind when we compare its 100x shot against that of the S21. In its defense, the S20's colors better match the building in the wider shots, but in every other appreciable way, the S21 is night and day better here. You get the idea now. The 3x looks great on the S21 Ultra, and 5x looks great on the Note 20 Ultra, slightly less great on the S20 Ultra. In this particular shot, the S20 looks a bit hazier than the others, but honestly, all three photos look pretty good here. Now, for these samples, I switched to the second tier of zoom presets on each phone. That's 30x on the S21 and S20, and 20x on the Note 20. Sorry if this is getting a little confusing with all the numbers. Now, I can't say that I really love any of these. There's a sort of aggressive sharpening visible in the sample from the Note 20, and you can see a bit of the same in the S21's shot. There's really just no hiding that these are digitally zoomed photos. If anything, I'd give the S21 a slight edge here for looking just a bit less processed, while the S20 ranks dead last for this particularly soft shot. Of course, that gets even worse once I punch into 100x on these phones and 50x on the Note, but at the very least, all three are impressively still totally legible, which I guess makes 100x useful to some extent. Here's one last telephoto test, starting with 3x on the S21 and 5x on the others. The Galaxy S20's shot looks a bit softer than the rest already, but these are all totally fine and nothing's overexposed or the wrong color. As per usual, things start to get a bit dicier the further in we zoom, and 30x on the Galaxy S20 looks even softer than 50x on the Note 20. There's quite a bit of visible noise reduction happening with each shot, but to my eyes, the S21 looks the sharpest here, though the S20 seems to have retained the most shadow detail. You can vaguely make out the wings of the bird on the right. That all goes out the window when we switch to 100x though, where the S21 immediately regains its ground. Again, it's hard to really knock 100x on either phone since this is such an impressive and niche feature, but in the S20's shot, the bird is more or less just a jumble of pixels. While the S21's photo looks pretty heavily over-sharpened, there's still more detail to begin with in there, and you can see the individual tufts and feathers of the bird a bit more clearly. Overall, I was surprised by how often I actually preferred photos from the Note 20 Ultra over even the newer S21 Ultra. Between the higher contrast, the warmer color temperature, and the brighter images, it almost always came out on top for me. Though to the S21's credit, the dual telephoto lenses are a fantastic add-on, and they really highlight just how much Samsung has improved its imaging in the year since it released the S20 Ultra. That's going to do it for this camera comparison. Let me know which phone took your favorite photos in the comments down below, and maybe share if the results were different from what you were expecting. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe before you go. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you next time.